Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Cassidy. If it's not, thanks for always tuning into my videos. Today we're doing a much needed and waited on video. It is my Our Fantasy bingo update. Back in April when Our Fantasy released their year-long list, their bingo card, I sat down and made a TBR for it. I have not actually looked at that TBR until today when I sat down and figured out what I've read to fit the bingo card, and to be honest, most of the things I've read weren't on that TBR list, but I figured I'd do a check-in, show you which ones I've accomplished and which ones I still need, and that way I can get some help and suggestions down in the comments for those prompts that I still need a little bit of help with, because I have until March 31st to complete this. I'm actually doing a lot better than I thought I was. I think I have 17 out of the, I want to say there's 25 prompts completed, and I'm only completing hard mode because actually I would already have finished them if I only did easy mode, but you know what? I'm an overachiever and let's get that hard mode. Have a little spreadsheet. Let's start with top LGBTQ plus list prompt. The hard mode for this is less than 10 votes on the Reddit Our Fantasy list. For this I ended up going with the Ninth Reign. I saw down below, I think like 3 or 4 votes was the Winnowing Flame trilogy. I read all of those this year for my book club, so the Ninth Reign will go on this. Actually, the Ninth Reign and the Winnowing Flame trilogy fit most prompts, but you can only use an author once, so I had to really pick and choose which one I was using this for. The next one is Weird Ecology, and the hard mode for it is Not Vandermeer or Meevil. For this, I used Bone Ships Awake, which was another book we read for my book club this year. It has weird ecology, even though no one in the book club realized it did. It has like poisonous land that the trees can't grow properly, so it counts. One I'm struggling with is 2 or more authors, the hard mode being 3+. I'm really struggling finding a book written by 3 or more authors within the fantasy sci-fi genre, so if you know any down below, let me know. I know like anthology collections count, so I might end up having to pick up some short stories and reading one of those. But other than that, I'm not really sure what book has 3 or more authors. If you know one, let me know down below. I know a lot that have 2, but I need 3. So give me some recommendations. This one I'm struggling with. Then we have Historical SFF, and the hard mode is Not Britain or Ireland. I had 2 options for this. I could have chosen A Song for the Void, which is in the South China Sea, but our protagonists are from Britain, or the one I ended up going with is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I did read that book, and it definitely counts. So there we go. Actually, is Babel technically in Britain? Actually, let me know down below. I think technically it happens in Britain, but it revolves around characters that aren't predominantly British. I might end up having to go for A Song for the Void for this since the setting is in the South China Sea. Let me know down below. The next one is set in space and not from Earth. Our protagonists have to be predominantly not from Earth, and 50% of the book has to happen not on a planet, in a spaceship up in the stars, just like floating around in the abyss, something like that. You can have descendants from Earth, like long ago, but not just like a character goes up in space and from Earth directly. I don't know what to do for this one. I don't know. I don't read a lot of sci-fi anymore, especially a lot of sci-fi like set on another planet. I am reading the Becky Chambers one in January for Maria's book club, the checkout book club. That is a plan right now. I think that one does count. I also have plans to read Project Hail Mary. I don't know if that one counts for hard mode. I need it to be hard mode, guys, so let me know down below. Set in space, but not from Earth. The next one is a standalone, and the hard mode for this is just not on the Reddit list. I went with The Cavern, which is a horror but with speculative fiction. It's got like an alien race in it, and it's a standalone, so that one worked for me. The next one I'm struggling with is Antihero. The hard mode is YA. I've read a lot of anti-hero books this year since April, but not any YA, and when I was looking through the suggestions on Reddit, most of them were not YA, and the only YA ones I really saw were the Six of Crows duology, but I've already read that, so I can't really count that. So if you have any other, I just need like a little bit of an anti-hero, a little bit of a morally gray character, that would work. Because so far for YA this year, I've read Aragon and like Sabriel, and those both are like pretty heroic characters. They aren't anti-hero. One I thought about was the Villains duology. I did pick up that graphic novel, but I think that's technically adult. So yeah, let me know down below. Anti-hero YA. I need one. The next prompt is a cool weapon, and the hard mode is that weapon has a cool name. I used the Umbral Storm for this. There are a couple cool weapons. They have superpowers to them, and they all have names. So I thought that worked well, and I read it recently for SPFBO, and another indie book on the list is always good. Okay, and on to more I'm struggling with. We have name in the title. The hard mode for this is first and last. I've actually read a lot of easy modes. I've read a lot of one names in the title. I've read Mary, Sabriel, Aragon. I think there's more of them. I just can't remember. But I need one with first and last. In my TBR video, I did have the Liza Locke Lamora down. I do own that one. I do still want to read it, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. I also know Rachel suggested the Arter Ben series. I have the first book on ebook, but both of those are quite long and chunky. Maybe I'll get to one, but if you know other ones, let me know down below. I am a mood reader, so I typically love to have like lots of options. So first and last names in the titles down below. And another one I'm struggling with. Authors uses initials, but the hard mode is pseudonyms. I've read a lot of initial books, but it is hard to figure out pseudonyms. I just received The Mask of Mirrors, which I know counts as a pseudonym. I know T. Kingfisher is a pseudonym, and there's a fantasy author that I talked about being a pseudonym. KJ Parker is a pseudonym. But that's all I know. So if you know any and have any recommendations for me, let me know down below. Again, The Mask of Mirrors is a huge book, but I do have The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher, which isn't that. I'm really wishing I hadn't DNF'd earlier the T. Kingfisher for Late Night Crew, because that would have worked perfectly, but I DNF'd it like 60% in, so it doesn't work for me. Next, we have published in 2022, and the hard mode is a debut novel. I picked A Touch of Light for this. You don't need to know anything about A Touch of Light. It's great. It works, and it works this prompt really well, so if you need something for this prompt, pick up A Touch of Light. The next prompt is an urban fantasy, and the hard mode is LGBTQIA+ characters in it. I picked Jade City for this. There's not a lot of explaining. There are some gay characters, some bi characters in Jade City, and it is an urban fantasy. It works well. The next one is set in Africa, and the hard mode is that African heritage author. I picked Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter for this. It fits perfectly. It's a great read. If you're struggling with this, I highly suggest the Rage of Dragons series. Otherwise, I do know that Black Winter Red Wolf fits, but I haven't read that one yet. Non-human protagonist, I would actually like to change, and the hard mode is just a non-humanoid. Right now, I have the Kraken Sacrifice down, which does count. It is speculative fiction, but it is actually a romance, and I haven't put any other romance on this list, so the completionist in me wants to like have a fantasy or a sci-fi or horror on the list and not a fantasy romance. It is fantasy technically still. Obviously it needs to be fantasy to be on the Our Fantasy bingo card, because it is like a fantasy romance. Our main character is a Kraken, so he counts for hard mode too, but I do kind of want to change it, so let me know if you have any suggestions down below. And then we have Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey, and the hard mode is not time travel. This one was so hard. At first, I thought Fires of Vengeance would work, but I really wanted to use Fires of Vengeance for the African heritage prompt. But in Fires of Vengeance, there is they stop time, essentially. It's not time travel, but they go into the underworld, and then they come back at approximately the same time that they left. I ended up going with The 13th Hour, which I read recently for the SPFBO finalist vlog, because they can, like, speed up time, but they don't travel through time. And so it's like timey-wimey, or like slow down time, that kind of stuff. I definitely think that counts, and I'm really happy I read that book. It fits this really well. The next one I don't have is 5 SFF short stories. The hard mode is an anthology. I own a couple of these. I just haven't read them yet. I literally picked up the dragon ones for this prompt, so I gotta get to it. But if you have any other suggestions, let me know. Then we have features mental health, and the hard mode is just not Stormlight. Super easy hard mode. I did Dragon Mage by ML Spencer. We have a lot of mental health rep in this. We have a autistic main character in it, so it works well. Then we have self-pub or indie, and the hard mode is less than 100 ratings on Goodreads or Amazon. For this, I picked Nomads of the Sea. I'm still shook by how little ratings this story has, because it's one of my favorites. It was so freaking good. I think it's the cover and the fact that it's so chunky that people don't want to pick it up, but it's so incredible, and so many more people need to pick it up. But it works for me because it has less than 100 ratings. I think it's actually sitting at like 12 reviews, which is not a lot. And then we have an award finalist that didn't win, And the hard mode is not Hugo or Nebula. This was a really easy prompt for me. I actually was going to use a SPFBO finalist that didn't win. I think I had Voice of War originally in here, but then I changed it because I just wasn't entirely sure if our fantasy would count SPFBO. I think they would. I mean, they count the Goodreads Choice Awards. I ended up going with Valor, which was a finalist but didn't win the 2015 Gemmel Award, which is a fantasy award. Our fantasy made this really easy. They have like a list of all the awards and you can click on them. The next one I'm struggling with is a BIPOC author, with the hard mode being an Indigenous author. Most of the recommendations I get are either Rebecca Roanhorse or Stephen Graham Jones. Both those authors, I was just not a big fan of their books. I've read things from them before and I didn't love them. So I was trying to find more, and I found it really hard to actually find more, and I now want to read more Indigenous authors too, to like bring them more into publishing. So I actually would just like a list. If you have any recommendations down below, let me know. I think Scarlett St. Clair is one. Sorry about that. We had a cat fall and had to fix it. So yeah, if you know any more Indigenous authors in the fantasy, sci-fi, horror realm, let me know down below. The next prompt is shapeshifters, and the hard mode is not wolf or dog shifters. For this, I put A Shadow of What Was Lost, which is a book club pick. I'm really good at these book club or fantasy picks. There is some shapeshifters in it. They call them shapeshifters, so I think it counts. And they are not wolf or dog shifters. Then we have no ifs, ands, or buts. The hard mode is a 3+ word title. I picked Into the Drowning Deep. It works. And then Family Matters, and the hard mode is 3 generations in a single family. I picked Sword of Kaigen for this. I think this works. Otherwise, I can switch Jade City and Sword of Kaigen. I think both of these are reversible. I'm pretty sure you see 3 generations in Sword of Kaigen, but I might be wrong. But I know for sure you see 3 generations in Sword of Kaigen in Jade City. And then we have a book club or read along, and this is meant to be our fantasy Reddit community book club or read along, and the hard mode is the current selection. Originally, I said I wasn't going to submit my bingo board at all, so I didn't really care if I followed this and used it as like a YouTube book club, because that is the platform I hang out on the most. But I think what will happen is this one will be the prompt that I substitute. You're allowed to substitute one prompt and pick one from the previous years. So I think this will be the prompt I choose to substitute, and then I can submit my bingo board, which is kind of cool. And the last prompt is Revolutions and Rebellions. The hard mode is main focus. I chose Ashes of the Sun for this by Jangle Wexler. It really clearly fits this prompt and it works really well. So yeah, those are my bingo board, our fantasy update. I need help with 3+ authors, set in space but not from Earth, name and title first and last, author uses initials but they're a pseudonym, 5 SFF short stories, anthology, an Indigenous author, and then the book club one. And I think that's it. Did I say Antihero? That's a YA? That one too. So if you have recommendations for all of those, let me know down below. Thank you so much. Are you participating in our fantasy? Let me know. I will give this list out at the end of March, beginning of April as well, when I update, and I'm excited to do the next year's as well when that comes out. Let me know if you have any thoughts on any of these questions, concerns. And if you'd like to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon are all linked in the description bar below. Have yourselves a remarkable day.